Divorce TV with Wally Marcus. Our topic today is divorce financial management with my special guest, Shelia Goetz. Support for Divorce TV provided in part by Center for Divorce Mediation, 520-577-1202. Shelia? Pronouncing your last name correctly, which I always mess up, is?
Shelia.
Shelia. I like the nickname Shy as well, but we'll be more formal today. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm a CPA. I have a master's in organizational management, but really what I do is I use financial management strategies to assist people in major financial situations, help them move through those situations.
And some examples of that would be?
Oh, people come to my office basically with challenges that they don't know where to go. There was a death in the family. They get a tax notice. Oh, maybe they have possibly an employee that they think might be stealing, or maybe a partner in a business who possibly is stealing. Even have an Olympic athlete. So there's a lot of different situations.
And how does divorce play into this?
Divorce is, oftentimes people don't come and say, I need a divorce. What they really come in for, usually I'm working with them on business of some sort or doing their tax return, and somewhere along the line it happens that they're getting a divorce. Someone has filed or something comes out and we end up facing this issue, and they say, I don't have any idea what to do. Where do I go from here? What do I do?
And what do they do?
Well, to me, the first thing we do is, to me, the first two important things are getting a counselor and looking at your finances. Because an attorney, to me, comes after that, because the first thing you have to do is look at what the assets are, because your attorney will help you get through the divorce, and you will get through the divorce, but you're going to live with the financial ramifications in that settlement for the rest of your life.
I told you I was going to surprise you with some questions.
Yes,
here's one of
you
my surprises. When I do this in mediation, very often I find it's very difficult to get the data from people on that one. Now, how do you get the people want the divorce, or they want something, but they don't want to sometimes do the work or gather the data, which, you know, and I've even had couples who sometimes said, I'd rather stay married than gather the data.
Well, most of the time there is so much emotional things going on that they just don't even know where to start. It's like hitting a brick wall, and they don't know where to start. They can't think clearly, and so I ended up trying to put together a checklist. Okay, let's get together, let's start putting together bank accounts, let's look at your retirement plan assets. So I started with a checklist and try to bring these things together, and oftentimes people will just say, go out and write down what your bank accounts are, this, that, and the other, and they don't get it right, because you come in and it's still not, is it a joint account, is it not a joint account? So I just have people make copies, give them a checklist, and then we'll start working through things together. Let's take a look at where you're at.
So the data is very, very important.
Oh, it's so important, because you're trying to manage how you're going to live after this divorce. Okay,
so it sounds like the initial step really is getting these people organized.
It is.
Data, and how long does that take to do that normally?
It depends on the situation. There are, you wouldn't believe the diverse nature.
I always like examples. I think the audience always appreciates knowing a little bit about examples. Can you give us, some examples, or,
of how long
without
it takes?
keeping it confidentiality, some of the experiences you've had with this, getting the data?
Well, getting data, well, I've had some where the people brought in their last year's tax return, and they just brought in their bank statements, and I gave them a list, and it came in within maybe a week. But all they had a job, they had W-2 income, they had vehicles, retirement, and that's about all. So that went fairly quickly. Now, if there's a business involved, if people have businesses, or there's a lot of stocks or different things like that, then it takes a little more time. If they have a business, then oftentimes we have to go into...
So what's the longest you've ever taken?
The longest was...
what's the shortest and what's the longest?
The shortest time was probably a week, and that's putting together the financial information. The longest was probably a couple of years. So there's quite a range.
Before I forget, and I do this occasionally, I want to flash on the screen your information so people can get you if they need to. And there's on your screen, you can see it now, and your website and your telephone number. So if you need to get Shelia at all, there's where you can reach her.
Now, Pathways Through Divorce actually came about because of working through a divorce with a really good friend of mine who ended up being a client as well. And going through that, we were pulling all the financial information and taking it to an attorney. And first, the attorneys aren't always real receptive because it's kind of a territorial area. Because most of the time when you hear someone is going through a divorce, the first thing you hear is, you need to get an attorney.
Knee-jerk reaction.
Oh, yes, but that's because you're looking at your rights. And you don't know what you're negotiating for yet. So, it's kind of like going to a surgeon and you have chest pain. Yes, you might need hard surgery, but the surgeon is not the first one you go to. You go to your doctor, he does a workup, and then you go to the surgeon or the divorce attorney after you have information to give them. So anyway, we went to the attorney, and she was actually really impressed with the fact that everything was together. So after that, there were a couple of other divorces that I ended up getting involved in, and it kind of grew from there because the attorneys did appreciate having the information collated together.
This is an interesting question. I mean, you're dealing with individuals or you're dealing with couples at this point?
It can be either.
Well, how do you do it if you're dealing with, let's talk a little bit about how you
Okay.
do with both and what the differences are between dealing with it. Because if you're dealing with a couple, it seems to me, it is sometimes an adversary process. How do you sort of
It is.
deal with that? Are you perceived as a neutral, or are you hired by both of them? How does that work?
Well, I've had situations where, well, especially if they have children, I tell them that if you have children, you're going to be tied together with this other spouse for the rest of your life, like it or not, because
Very
you
true.
have a child.
Very true.
So it's important to try to work through things so that for the rest of your life, marriages, birthday parties, you can show up and,
I often tell people they don't want to fight over who's going to be walking your daughter down the aisle.
Exactly. So we try to work through that. Now I have some situations where I have one spouse comes in and we're working on a tax return, and the other, they're fighting. And she wants to get the tax return done. She doesn't think he's going to do it at all. And so just wait, because it's better to file jointly if you can, rather than, married filing separately. So, one will come in and then maybe the other one will come in separately because they just can't come together. I've some where they do come together and sit down, and it's like a mediation like I would do for the business world, where they come in together and, they're sitting together and we work through issues and, some of the financial issues, and it goes okay, no one's killed anyone, they're all right. And then there are some instances where, the next time maybe they don't come together.
When you do that, do you actually work, I mean, most of your cases, adversary cases, or are they mediated cases, or both, or?
Mostly mediated cases,
Mostly
because I really try to get people to work through things together if at all possible.
I meant to ask earlier on is what's I mean, like you're a CPA, so that I think most of us understand what a CPA is, but why don't you tell some of us who don't know what a CPA is, what CPA is and what the training is and what the qualifications are, because not everybody who does this kind of work is a CPA. That's the highest you can go, isn't it?
Well, a CPA, a certified public accountant, and there is specialized training in taxes, accounting, auditing. There is a standard license for the state.